All right. I know everybody already kind of introduced, but with the this going on YouTube, if Sharon, if you can just give us a little brief intro to who you are, so if they don't know you, and then you can take it over.
Hi, I am Sharon Lemons. I've been an officer of behavioral health nutrition in a number of roles. These days, I'm one of the members of the nominating committee. My experience with IDD is, first of all, I got two adult children with autism myself, and have done early intervention and a state supported living center. And now I'm back at MHMR of Tarrant County in Fort Worth, Texas, where many of my IDD folks that I see actually come to me through the mental health, avenue, where they're living out in the community, but they need help. And I also do the group homes for MHMR. So that's me. A, I was going to talk a little bit. I was looking through some of the things that was asked about, and I saw a number of people asking about talking to caretakers and about weight gain. So I thought I'd give my perspective on that, and we can open it up a little bit later and get some other people's perspective. From my perspective, when you're talking to caretakers, I like to go and talk to the caretakers, but caretaker can be a number of people. This can be the parents. This can be, a relative, a grandparent, an aunt, a sibling, whoever. But it can also be somebody that's hired to take care of them, whether it is somebody who's got quite a bit of skill in IDD or somebody that is brought in at a low wage and they're working in group homes. Whoever they are, I like to talk to them and get their perspective about what's going on. One of the things that I tell people all the time, whenever it comes to me as a caretaker, you see my individuals for a short period of time. You're in and out of their lives for a short period of time. I'm with them all the time, and this is a long-term project for me. It's not like they're going to be out of the house at 18. In fact, one of mine just turned 41. So um, I like to respect those people that are taking care. And even if it's somebody who maybe doesn't have any education at all about IDD, they may very well see something that somebody else is not seeing. In fact, frequently, I think sometimes they see more than we do because they are, they look at things through a different perspective. We're looking at things through the perspective of all these things that we've learned, and they tend to get down a little bit more basic, and they can tell me some really basic information about what's going on with that individual. So I like to talk to them and find out, what's going on. And then, I do like to try to provide some education, no matter who they are, as to how maybe some things can go better. And one of those areas is actually on weight. I frequently we get people that are, well, this individual is overweight, and I just get on to him all the time about what he eats, and I feel like that's a house of cards with IDD. I can tell you my middle son, and so some of the people in the call know him. He is 6'2" and 39 years old, and I think he's up to 127 pounds. Okay, so it was a number of years back that I looked into the bathroom as I was walking by, and I noticed him looking at his stomach, and I said, "What are you doing?" And he's like, he jumped and he didn't want me to see him looking at his stomach. and I, and he says, I'm getting fat. And I was like, what? Somebody had told him, don't eat that. It'll make you fat. And it was somebody who was joking. But in this population, those kinds of comments get taken to heart. And there's a reason that we have a high percentage of eating disorders with this population is when you tell them something like that, they take it to heart and they run with it, you know? And if you tell them it's a bad thing to eat pasta, that they may never eat another piece of pasta in their life. They take it 100%. So you've got to be careful what you say to them, and I encourage people to talk more about balance and nutrition, and getting all the nutrients through all the different foods. And it's okay to have different foods in moderation, and try to make it to where it's not, oh, you can't have this ever, because that just, like I said, that's a house of cards. It just seems to be a major issue with some of them, where suddenly we're looking at malnutrition because they're cutting things out of their diet without you even knowing it, without you asking. That they're going to do that kind of thing. So I do feel like that's a part of the education with the caregivers, and I try to keep caregiver information as basic as possible, because there's so many things that caregivers have to do. Nutrition's just a piece of it. It's just a piece of it. They have so many things they have to do with our individuals with IDD. So I want to make sure that it doesn't overtake everything, because there again, you're putting too much emphasis on it. And when you do that, then you're going to get these overreactions. So that's kind of my perspective on working with the caregivers. And as far as weight gain goes, there's an awful lot of medications that is given to this population that's going to cause weight gain. So we do need to be very much aware that they need balance in their diet. Some of them are going to drive that appetite like crazy. There are a few that suppress the appetite, and you're going to have to, look at the other direction. Are they underweight? You know, that kind of thing. And so I try to I go with the old fashioned my plate method that we use with diabetes. Teach them to fill half that plate with non-starchy vegetables. Get them to include all the foods on their plate. I like to get them to try all the foods, but my definition of try is different. Okay. When I'm talking about try the foods, I mean, will they mash it with their fork? Will they pick it up and smell it? Will they, will they help prepare it? What can they do to investigate that food without necessarily putting it into their mouth? Because if you are forcing them to put things in their mouth, that's scary. So I do encourage them to try foods, but like I said, my definition of try is different. I do encourage that plate method, and with the vegetables and the starch and fruit and those kinds of things. It's a visual thing that you can put up on the wall. They can see it and they know what to do. So even if they can't read things, they can see that visual, and it's a good visual to have. And I don't know about the group homes you work with, but the group homes I work with, the staff turnover is, just crazy sometimes. But that plate method, if you can stick it up there on the wall somewhere or on the refrigerator, it's a good visual that everybody can see and go by. And it doesn't leave a whole lot of questions there. Or I also like to include a list of what goes in each spot, because I'm always surprised at how many people don't know what's a protein, what's a starch, and what's a non-starchy vegetable. So I like to do those kinds of things for controlling weight and encourage that. And I know many of them like to go back and get seconds and more. I know I've got a group home that's telling me that they've got an individual that whatever is left from all the other residents, this one resident wants to go and eat all of it. And I think you have to get a handle on those kinds of things and put a limit to it. I always, in my own house, it's not seconds unless you have a non-starchy vegetable. If you get more food without a non-starchy vegetable, it's your dessert. And my boys don't like that, but hey, it works in my house, So I don't know that I have gone that far with the group homes yet, but I do encourage that if they're going to get seconds, it include non-starchy vegetables, and that there be a limit to that. If there's going to be leftovers, you know what? Part of our meal plan, I'm having to go and rewrite the menu, uh, is that some of those leftovers are going to be lunches for the next day, partially to balance the budget. Have you looked at the price of food? I mean, come on, So I want some of those things put away for, leftovers for different things, and I want to see some limits put on that. And many times, if you tell these individuals this is the limit, they tend to respect that. Not 100% of the time, we know that, but there's many of them that will respect that and say, okay, this is the limit. They like limits. They like things to be somewhat rigid sometimes. So I encourage to get past the rigidity, and get work in some flexibility. But I'm not beyond using that and saying, and let's take and put some of these things away, and this is the purpose for these leftovers. And there again, I also try to encourage some activity, exercise. I actually encourage my groups to dance a lot. So, hey, it's a fun way to get some movement going, right? So, anyway, that's kind of my thoughts on that.
Can I say something? Because I should have said we also do, we also have a lot of group homes in New York City, upstate New York, New Jersey, and we recently started with California. And let me tell you my issue with California is they're always telling me when I say about only having non-starchy vegetables as extra, whatever, or only having certain things and not buying certain things to have in the house at all, that the patients have their own money. If they want to spend it on whatever they can, but we as an agency have to provide good care. They tell me I'm violating patients' rights. So I have that issue with them. I never have it in New York or whatever, but in California, they're always telling me about violation of patients' rights. And I go, no, the agency has responsibility to provide proper care and guidance, et cetera, et cetera. So that's always an issue for me. The other issue is I have great respect for the direct DSPs. I have many that are really wonderful, but then I have a few that actually will not deal with behavior outbursts and they're always giving them food to stop a behavior outburst.
Mm-hmm.
Jean talks about that a lot with her.
That's an issue. And I had somebody come in Monday to see me. She came in. This is how comfortable they are with me. Came in eating M&Ms. Okay, coming for a nutrition appointment, eating M&Ms. Okay, because they know I'm going to be, have a little discussion about it, but whatever. But that was to get her to leave the house.
Yeah, I have some major problems with using food reinforcers. And I stand up on stage in one of my presentations, and I'll tell you this over and over and over again. That middle child of mine, they used food reinforcers. In fact, they used gummy bears when he was 7 years old, and I take full responsibility. I didn't know better. I didn't tell them to stop. Okay, so I'm not blaming anybody but myself on this. But at this point, that young man has had $55,000 worth of dental work that we can trace back to food reinforcers. So you're not really doing them any good whatsoever. And there, and the initial thought was, well, he's he's thin. This is the one that is up to 127 pounds and 6'2". No, we are not really having a problem with his weight, are we? But that's not the only issue. Your health is not just about your weight, and we all know that. But the dental health is a major issue. So I try to make sure that people know, do not use food reinforcers, because you're setting up some dental issues that you really just don't want to deal with. That I tell you, that's been a bear. But the other thing that I wanted to point out is many of my group homes at the moment. Now, I admit I walked into the worst menu on the face of the planet. Okay. But many of them, what's happening at the moment is they all have debit cards and they all have cell phones. And if they don't like what's on the menu, they hear this knock, 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 and it's Uber Eats at the door. So this is an issue that I know I'm dealing with, and we're going to have to work through some of that. So I don't, maybe some of y'all have suggestions on that for me, because this is a new one for me that I'm having to deal with that one. But yeah, Uber Eats, and the fact that they all have their own cell phone and it's connected to mama and daddy's debit card, or what their allowance or whatever. And yeah, they're getting an awful lot of food. So many of the weight issues that I'm seeing are the individuals that have access to their own cell phone and Uber Eats. So, and I'm with you, Kathy, that's not their right.
No, I know. No, I always say they have whatever money they have, they can spend it on whatever they want. I would have nothing to say about it, really, unless they wanted to discuss it with me. But you're right. But I've had parents actually call me and stuff like that, and I tell them, don't give them the money.
Right.
Don't put it on the card. They can't spend it if it's there.
That's just like if you and I have a problem eating cookies, you don't buy, 5 different cookies and put in the kitchen, So.
But the same thing, getting the sites not to buy certain foods. I mean, I'm going to just say it's California, because they're making me nuts. This whole California group, because they're buying. I made them not buy, and then they also have extra refrigerators. So I said, only put in the refrigerator what you need for the day, because they were letting people just go and take whatever. I said, absolutely not. Have it labeled what it's for: dinner, lunch, whatever. So it's really clear that you just can't take whatever you want. It's not their right to do that. They keep telling me it's their right. I say it's not their right to do that. It's our responsibility to teach them how to live, because these happen to be, most of them are children, or like 17-year-olds or whatever, who are coming like from a court system as well. So they really haven't had any guidance, perhaps. And so I said it's our responsibility to provide that guidance. And we are not buying those foods. I said, we're not buying cookies. We're not buying any of that stuff at all, because I know what they're going to spend it on. And I said, when they have a party, you can buy whatever for a party. I said, but not for an everyday food. So they think I'm horrible out there, but whatever.
Well, I think sometimes working with individuals in group homes, they hear that thing that says, well, you have a right, you have rights, and that's a big thing. They do have rights. They can make choices. So they, several years ago, the organization I work for wanted me to talk about that when it comes to food. And it's true that they do need to make a lot of their own decisions. They need to make food decisions too. But I've told them, I said, don't ask an open-ended question and say, what do you want? Give them like 2 or 3 choices that fit within their diet. If they are a diabetic or they're obese or overweight, say, for a snack this afternoon, would you like to have fruit? Would you like to have a peanut butter cracker? Or would you like to have popcorn? Just don't throw things out there. Most of the people that I've seen, and I'm kind of fortunate because I have a small group I work with, and I've actually been following those people for all these years, like 14 years. So I've gotten to know them pretty well. But some of the new ones who come in from, say, living with parents or grandparents or uncles or aunts, they come in very overweight with very bad eating habits. come in with very bad eating habits. And actually, most of them, after they've been in the group home for about 6 months to a year, they start to lose the weight because
Mhm.
a lot of times the family will feel so sorry for them that they give them anything they want to make them feel better about themselves and feel good. But when they come to the group home, there's limitations. There's limitations on the types of foods they're going to get. It doesn't mean they're not going to get to enjoy their favorite fast food. I mean, I don't ever say that, but their portions are going to be, regulated. And it does make a big difference, but it's a challenge because it really depends on who's working in the group home. And once you train certain people who are working with them, then all of a sudden they're gone. And you've got somebody else who doesn't really understand all this or hasn't taken the time. So one of the areas I need to work on is simplifying things. I tend to be very detailed, and I've learned over time that that doesn't really work in this situation. Too much information is too much information because they have so much they have to track. So I'm working on being more simplistic about what I teach. But I do, like Sharon said, I really like the My Plate because it's a visual. And even when I'm working with people one-on-one, they understand that. And then
Mhm.
they start asking questions and they say, well, is this food okay? I think making it simple, whether you're working with a caregiver or an individual themselves is really important.
Right. Yeah, I know one of the things that we're going to have on the new menu that I'm writing is a consumer choice day. And for them cooking, one of the things I'm going to ask is that if they cook on that day, and I 100% acknowledge that many times on that consumer choice day, they're going to go out and eat fast food.
Oh.
Okay. But yeah, I'm trying to encourage them that on the days that they actually cook, that they look at that plate method and they pick things that fit in each one of those. And that when they plan out a meal to cook for themselves, that it has all those components. And I know that with my two boys at home, that's how I do meal planning with them. And I have a greater amount of success working with them on meal planning whenever I do it that way. So
Curious, Sharon, you were talking before we let everybody in about like celiac and stuff like that, having those restrictions. How do you educate and talk about that with people that may not be familiar?
and I'm going to cop out and I'm going to say I pull out Jackie Larson's books. And I have them go by Jackie Larson's books because she really has done the work to include that, and she has the best information out there. I mean, it's important if you've got somebody with celiac that by Allison, somebody said she did say she sent a question, but anyway. Okay, Jackie Larson's books are they're the best. She's got the information on the celiac and the procedures you have to follow and all those kinds of things. So I think it's important for us to also use our resources whenever it comes to that kind of thing. I mean, if that's something that you're going to have to get in there and learn and do on a big scale, then by all means dig into it. But if this is going to be, a once in a while thing, then you use your resources. And as far as I'm concerned, Jackie's is the best on that. So wasn't meaning to advertise her books, but that's, it's just my opinion. Her books are the best on that kind of thing.
Well, thank you so much. This is Jackie Larson. I didn't expect all of this, but thank you very much. I do want to tell you a little bit about my whole going about and creating the books and how I've been a consultant dietitian for the last 40 years. I just got my 40-year letter for the academy. And when I'm sitting here listening and kind of snickering and thinking, oh yeah, yep, just happened last week. Yep. Giving them the food as a reward. Oh yeah, pin. And hopefully I like to try and think of myself as a problem solver, because I feel that every one of these clients is unique in their own way. And I have to try and figure out a way to get to them to solve the problem. And one of the things that I've done over the years is I keep a weight on everybody, and I have it right on the nutritional assessment. And I do a continuation over the last 10 years. So their weights are on the nutritional assessment. I do a little chart January through December 2001, 2002, and so on. And that way we can kind of keep a track to see how they're doing over the years. Are they gaining weight like most people? Are they gaining weight like people out in the community? And lo and behold, I had a student that wanted to study this material. I take interns, and one of my interns from USC wanted to take all that data and put it in there and see if having a dietitian on staff was making a difference. And it definitely was. Dietitians are there, and they're there to help the clients and teach them and train them, trying to feed them a bottle. So that is a tool that I use to try and keep people within the same weight range. And I come up with like a usual body weight range. And, if any of you are struggling and just want to talk to me individually, I'm happy to help you with that and talk to you about it, and even share my nutritional assessment form. Just send me an email, I'll send it to you. And it includes just keeping a close track on that weight over time. And if they are starting to trend upward, just looking at them as an individual and seeing what's going on in their life. Are they in a new date program? Are they grabbing food that they shouldn't be grabbing? And how do we solve that problem, to get their weight stabilized? I do write menus. I have 2 6-week cycles, a summer cycle, a winter cycle. And when I write my menus, I write them according to the dietary guidelines. I write them so they meet the nutritional needs, of course. But I also try and include the food trends that we're having. I always like to tell stories to the staff when I am introducing the menus to new people for the first time, and they see things on there like kale salad and look at me like there's no way they're going to eat this. So I tell them stories about it. One of the things that I did was when we needed to have more of the omega-3 fatty acids in there, I thought, oh, getting more fish in their diet is going to be difficult because it's expensive, and we've got all these people on these budgets for food. So I developed a great recipe for tuna cakes with lemon dill sauce. And I introduced it to them, and I told them, I explained, this is a recipe. We've tested it in my classroom, and it's been really well accepted. In fact, we have a In-N-Out burger here in California. And one of the staff members told me the story of her son only liked to go to In-N-Out burger 5 days a week to get his lunch. And she thought she would try these tuna cakes on him, and he actually loved it. And she keeps them ready for him in the refrigerator at all times. And another lady with the same tuna cakes told me, oh, I took your recipe and I fed 200 people at my church function. And I thought, oh my goodness, 200 people and this is what you're going to give them, you know, tuna cakes. And she said they loved it. So I try and get them excited about the foods that are on the menu and come up with really good recipes. This the staff have told me that they really enjoy the recipes. They've learned how to cook with the recipes that I've used. We do have a high turnover, but the ones that are there for a long time really enjoy the recipes. And they started buying the cookbooks to use. Sorry, that's him burping. Um, um, and you
We
know,
can deal with baby sounds.
they were buying the cookbooks to use in their own homes, and I didn't want that. You know, my heart is to make sure that the clients are getting good, healthy, nutritious meals. And so all of the recipes that I have are up on my website. So take a look if you're trying to find some new ideas for recipes. The cookbooks that I have, we have a lot of rules and regulations in California, and that's why it's such a pain to work with the people in California. And they do have the food safety guidelines on there. They have adaptations for texture modified diets and therapeutic diets. For celiac disease, the gluten-free, what do? You know, when you have somebody who barely speaks English and they have to prepare meals for somebody with celiac disease. So there's simple guidelines on there on how to adopt the recipe for them. And the recipes I do use the My Plate as a basis for it. So they're all getting, you know, the protein, the starch, the fruits, the vegetables, the milk, in every food group. I encourage them to follow the menus as close as possible. And by law, they're supposed to be doing that, but I know not 100% of the homes are doing that. Just to be honest, I know that's not happening, but the ones that do are doing amazing. They're getting the right amount of fiber. They're getting the 30 grams of fiber. They're getting all the vitamins and minerals that their body needs. And one of the things that we also had discovered in a study was that if these clients are getting the right nutrients in their body, they have less problems with constipation. So we were taking them off constipation medications. And the other thing that we discovered is they were also having less seizures, which completely shocked and surprised me. And I was very happy to hear that that was actually happening.
That's cool.
Jackie,
Yeah.
real quick, your website, is it thisconsultantdietitian.com?
Yes,
Okay, I'm gonna drop that in the chat for people if they want to go look at that. And do you mind if I throw another question at you?
absolutely. I'm here to help.
So just because you mentioned it, when Allison left, she put the her question on the discussion board, and we can go in there too, but she was talking about looking for guidance on screening for it's a behavioral health teaching facility. And just what if you have any guidance on screening, standards for charting, things like that.
Well, when I do a complete nutritional assessment on everybody quarterly, and I have my assessment form that's on there, and I'm willing, you know, I'm happy to share it with anyone who wants it. So we have 30 days from admission to do a nutritional assessment on the clients when they're admitted, and we put things on there that are behavior related, and so then, you know, we have to work as a team on how are we going to deal with it. Just last week I had, you know, a client who had gained 15 pounds in a month and a half. They were at a different day program, and he had some severe behavior problems. And the only thing that they could get to calm him down was to give him treats and to give him snacks. And I wrote up a nice paper and explained the reason we shouldn't be doing that. But in the meantime, until he gets adjusted to his new facility, and that we would allow him to have a snack. He also has had problems with choking incidents in the past. So, you know, that was another issue that we had to cross. So what I did is because the menus follow a pattern. I took off one of the starches in the evening meal, and he's gonna get cereal in a baggie and given to him in small amounts. And I told him it's fine that if it's a sweeter cereal until we can get him under a little bit better control. I'm really surprised that the clients really like the food. I'm so happy that they do. They're all eating salads. They're eating Swiss chard salad. I have a story I like to tell about this one young man where I walked into the group home and he said to me, he said, "Oh, you're the dietitian. I know the drill. I'm not allergic to any foods. The only vegetable you'll get me to eat is corn and carrots." And so he was kind of snarky. And I said, "Well, I've been a dietitian for a very long time. And, part of my job is to get you guys to like your vegetables a little bit more. And, it's there for you if you want to try it. You can have corn, you can have carrots as a substitute every single day. But, I spent a lot of time on this. And if you'd like to try it, let's go for it." And he goes, "Okay." So I said, "Let's go look at the menu." So on that day, the menu said Swiss chard salad. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is probably the worst salad to start somebody off with because, Swiss chard. I gave him the opportunity to make the choice. Would it be okay if we put some of this on your plate? And he was agreeable. And I said, "Well, you don't have to eat it if you don't want to, if you just, can look at it if you want to." But he agreed he wanted to take it and try some, and he really enjoyed it. And he saw everybody else was eating it and enjoying it as well. And I said, "Well, I can still give you carrots and corn every day, or you can try some of these new fruits and vegetables." And I went back 3 months later to go check to see how he was doing. And he says, "You know what? The food here is pretty good." And he says, "I'm eating all kinds of vegetables now." So, that I love. Those are stories I tell with the staff. And I like to tell stories of success on how this works and how we can get it to work.
That's high praise indeed, Jackie. I did want to go to Amy's question before we run out of time on those on tube feedings and adjusting the tube feedings. One of the things that I learned doing the little ones with IDD, with all the different syndromes, was measuring in different ways. And one of the things that I did frequently was something, a mid upper arm circumference, because many of those syndromes, their stature is not going to be what everybody else's is. They're not going to be as tall as everybody else. So I would find different ways to measure to see if they were in a good weight range. And I found that mid arm, upper arm circumference to be a good way to measure and find out if they were within normal limits. And, if they're, and then just document where their weight is, according to their body size. And, like I said, mid upper arm circumference, but, all the other measurements too, right? Take a combination of all those measurements and show where they really are. And then with that documentation, and most of the doctors I worked with were more than willing to adjust tube feedings up or down or whatever in order to, keep them at a stable weight, something that's good for them. Because if you've got somebody that is bedbound and they're on a tube feeding, the last thing you want to do is get them obese, because that's going to cause breathing problems and all that kind of stuff. So I like to bring in the other professionals as well, the occupational therapist and the physical therapist and all that kind of stuff. And, look at, the positioning and how they're swallowing and, not just swallowing food, but swallowing their own saliva and those kinds of things. And are we causing too much reflux by feeding them too much and therefore, putting them at risk for aspiration? So I would document all of those things. And then if we needed to adjust the calories down to keep them at a more stable health status, then we had all the documentation, you have the blessing of the doctor, and you go forward with it that way. And that's one of the things that I have done in the past. Amy, does that kind of answer your question?
Yes, that was very helpful. I do try, at some of my houses, we do have interdisciplinary meetings, so it's very helpful to have everybody's input like that, which is wonderful. Not at all of them, but definitely at a
Right.
few.
You don't always have access to all those professions. I mean, that's a wonderful scenario when it happens, but you and I know it doesn't always happen, and you do the best you can.
I like that idea of the mid-upper arm circumference. I have not been using that. Is there info on that for adults, or is that more just for children?
There's both. There's
Okay.
if you look at children, you get Z-scores for that mid upper arm circumference. But if you look at adults, there's a chart, and it's been a while since I was using it. But I found that chart to be very helpful for many of those syndromes where they did not reach the stature that the typical human being reaches, because many of them are going to be shorter. Their stature is going to be shorter. So, if you start cutting them back, just, willy-nilly cutting them back on calories, just to meet those weight, what we think of as ideal body weight, and you're not looking at those other signs that could indicate a malnutrition, then you may not be giving them enough nutrition. I really did work with one young lady for a long time. They said that she was going to die by the age of 24 months. She has passed last year at 17 years old. And most of that time she was on 600 calories a day. And although it was not perfect nutrition, did we ever get the recommended daily allowance for vitamins and minerals in her? No, we didn't. We did our best. We got it as close as we could. But no, we never got the recommended daily allowance of that. But if you tried to feed her too much, she actually ended up in the hospital a number of times, and her intestines would react badly to those extra calories. And I mean, the hospital would be coming in and planning her funeral. They'd be sending hospice and planning her funeral. And mom would look up at him and she'd say, "Can we go back to the calories and the feeding routine that we were doing before?" And when they do that, she'd recover, So, yeah, I mean,
Very similar, where the dietitian at the hospital would call and say, "Why are you feeding them so little? You're starving them." And I'm like, "Well, I've been following them for years, and this is actually what they need." Like, I had to keep cutting it back to see when they would stop gaining because they were overweight.
right.
They
Yeah,
don't have
and I
that
mean,
same experience.
I mean, okay, to a degree that calories in, calories out, that there's some merit to that, right? Okay, that's not the end all and be all. No, it's not. However, if you've got somebody who is, laying there 100% of the time, and all they're doing is breathing and, maybe a little bit of interaction with people, they don't need as many calories as somebody who's up running around, so you've got to, you've just got to try to find that sweet spot of what is going to be best for them. And I always made sure that the doctors were in it with me, and it's like, okay, this is where she seems to thrive, and that's hey, protect your license. make sure that you've got a doctor signing off on it. But yeah, I did that kind of thing. But I know whenever I was up at the state supported living center and we had all those syndromes up there, the doctors were absolutely thrilled whenever I would take somebody and I'd do the mid upper arm circumference, and they're looking at the weight going, oh my, that's over the ideal body weight. We're going to have to cut calories. And I take the mid upper arm circumference and show, gee, that's within normal limits. And the doctors, a number of them came and thanked me for doing that. Yeah. So you just have to take them as individuals, I mean, that's the reason in IDD that the word that we use for people is individual. We have to take them as individuals and treat them as individuals and do what's best for them.
I agree.
Yeah.
I just felt kind of alone. Like I've been doing pretty much what you said, and I have had the buy-in from doctors, which is helpful, definitely. But I didn't feel like there was any resources available. So it's good to know that I'm not on the wrong path.
No, I did it, and the doctors thanked me, and so hey, drop me a line sometime. I'll support you.
Thank you.
I'd like to add to this a little bit. One of the things that I see sometimes that happens is when you're calculating the calories, and I see this when they go to the hospital, the dietitians in the hospital don't treat them like an IDD, and they just put them at these extra high calorie levels. They come back and they've just gained all kinds of weight. I always want to make sure that I'm basing my calculation off of their ideal body weight range. Protein needs and calorie needs should be based off of ideal body weight range rather than the actual body weight. And one of the things that I also do is I look at the person. If they are gaining weight in the midsection, getting a double chin, gaining extra weight, that means that they are getting probably a little bit too much weight. A lot of these clients that have cerebral palsy, they just have thinner arms, thinner legs, and it just doesn't always work. I know the ideal body weight range, sometimes the clients are really small and say they're 4'5" and they're 80 pounds. I just take a look at them at 80 pounds and I look at them and say, okay, does this person look malnourished, or do they have adequate fat stores? Can I use 80 pounds plus or minus 10%? And I use that as their ideal body weight range rather, than using the upper one. So sometimes you have to individualize it, but the thing is you just always want to justify the reason what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah, exactly. I know working with the children, one of the things I did was I did ideal body weight, and the way you do ideal body weight on children who are not, growing at the rate that would be expected because of a syndrome or whatever reason, whether they're preemie or whatever, is you take that weight for length and you look at that middle line as to where the weight should be, that 50% line, that, and calculate that as 100% ideal body weight. And I always did 90 to 100% ideal body weight. That's not something I came up with on my own. If you go look at the Down Syndrome Society, that's what they suggest. Okay. And I did that with children for whatever reason. If they were cardiac patients, those that had congenital heart issues, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, and like I said, many of these various syndromes, there is more syndromes than you can count. I kid you not. All of y'all know that, but all of those syndromes that cause them to be smaller for whatever reason, I use that ideal body weight, and I use that upper number as 100%, and did 90 to 100% ideal body weight. And we had much more success as a team. Working in early intervention, we did have the physical therapist and the occupational therapist and those kinds of things, but things like walking and crawling and even the occupational things, the fine motor skills, seem to come into line much better if they were at that 90 to 100% ideal body weight than they did if they were, much larger.
The other thing is the IDD toolbox that BHN had a while back had a chart of the different conditions that people had and how many calories they needed per day. Like for instance, spina bifida compared to a normal healthy person would be 1 calorie per cc body weight,
Right.
weight. But spina bifida, it's actually 0.6 per calorie of a normal person. So I have that chart in the back of my diet manual, along with the ideal body weight range. It's all in there.
Yeah, you said that, and I'm sitting here looking off to my left. That's because my toolbox is somewhere over there. And that's something that we have talked about at times, getting back out and seeing, revisiting publishing. So we'll have to talk about that again, revisit that again.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, but I'm plugging my diet manual now, but all of that's in the back.
Actually, I was going to say, Sharon, speaking of publishing, if you want to jump in with your book.
You want me to go get the book? Hold on.
So Sharon just released a book. I guess it's not just anymore, is it? It's been a while.
No, it's been a minute. It's been about 6 months. So see, there you go. Autism Recipe, using trust and joy to take control of wellness. So some of that is, there's an awful lot of personal experience in there, but my thing with the book,
Available on Amazon. You should say it's available.
it's on Amazon. It's on Amazon is where you get it. Yeah. So here's how that came about. I mean, for years, from the moment I became a dietitian, everybody kept saying, and Sharon, you need to write a book about autism. People like Jackie Larson would tell me you need to write a book on autism. And I kept saying, oh, I need more experience. I need more experience. And eventually, some of the stuff that came out from Autism Speaks came out, and it was showing the health disparities of people with autism. So my book is not, this is, eat this for your behavior and all this kind of stuff. This is a book about wellness and creating wellness, because the average life expectancy, according to that Autism Speaks report, was 36 for autism. That's crazy. It's just crazy. There is no reason it should be that way. The CDC has it at 39, so we need to do a better job of wellness, both physical and mental. And my book talks about, forming relationships at the table, and, how you use those meal times to, form the relationships, have a better relationship with food and with your body, and those kinds of things. So anyway, so that's my book. So thank you for letting me put in a plug.
Yeah, so it is a little over 3:04. I don't know if everybody, Sharon, I don't know if you have to run or anything like that, but if anybody has any other questions, or I want to respect your time. Is there anybody else? Also, I meant to tell y'all at the beginning, if you don't feel comfortable jumping on camera, you can always shoot me a private message too, and I can just read your question if anything is going on.
I think we've had a good group today.
Yeah, so this is the biggest group period that I've seen since I've been doing this for IDD office hours. And I was telling Sharon before we did this that the group is usually smaller, but they're always so much more engaged. And it's usually Jean that's talking, since I've been doing this, and always a lot more questions and interactions than I see in some of the other groups, So awesome. I'm glad so many of y'all could come today. As far as like the housekeeping part of it goes, like I said at the beginning, I will get this up onto YouTube at some point, either today or tomorrow. Yeah, I don't know if anybody, Sharon, you or Jackie, want to jump on the discussion board to share any of that. you can do that as well. And I will try to put those links in the YouTube description too. So if anybody needs to see it there.
Yeah, I also
Catherine's,
mentioned that I did just started a brand new Facebook group
Yeah.
for dietitians who work for with individuals with developmental disabilities. So I don't know if I'm allowed to put that.
I'll go put that on the discussion board. Jackie and I know for many years we were not supposed to go, and I don't. They don't seem to be as up in arms about it these days. But for many years, the Academy frowned a lot if you went and did any kind of self promotion on there. So many times, if you see that Jackie has put out something, and I will go put it out on the discussion board. If I've done something, Jackie will go put it on the discussion board because you're not supposed to self promote. So, but anyway, Catherine Millam says, Sharon, what's the name of your group? Catherine, unmute yourself and tell me exactly what you're asking there.
Sharon, I just answered her. She was looking for your book. I put the link.
Oh, okay.
I grabbed
Okay.
the link off of Amazon.
Yeah, thank you so much, because I missed the name of the book. I wanted to make sure I could order it. Thanks.
Yeah.
You're most welcome. So
Thank you
if
for
you get
so
it, I hope you
much.
enjoy it.
Oh, you guys are really helpful today. I feel like I'm all by myself over here.
Yeah,
I
and I
actually
think
am.
Sharon, we've kind of talked about that before. The
Yeah,
community with the IDD dietitians it's so small, right?
it is.
That it's helpful to get, yeah.
Yeah. Did we have anybody here that's doing children?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
We do have a few houses, but they're not young children. I'd say they're like preteens, teens.
I do teens.
Okay.
Sometimes I have a few that come in that are younger for ASD because they have food issues, you know, the usual.
Yep.
Yeah, I did have some babies, but they're all growing up. So